And here I am. I would have been able to either buy it at $96,000 and get free insurance money to fix it up, or I could have renegotiated the price, taken it as is, fixed it up myself, and probably made right there, just easily, just right there, probably about... What's up, you guys? It's Graham here. So really quick, before I get into this one, we're very close to hitting 10,000 people on Instagram. So we just need a few more. If you guys want to show some support, feel free to add me on Instagram. I post it pretty much daily, so if you want to be a part of it there, show your support, feel free to add me there, and let's get into this. Now, looking back over my career of, it'll be almost 10 years now in May, I have very few regrets. Almost everything I've done has worked out amazingly well. I don't really look back and been like, I f***ed up, I should have done this, I should have done that differently. This is one of those things where I look back and I'm just thinking, this is the one that got away. I should have bought this one. This is the one thing that I look back on and wish I had done, and I didn't do it, and I f***ed up by not getting this place. So I'm going to share this entire story with you guys and how you can avoid making the same mistake that I did. And a lot of this dates back to 2011, 2012. Now, if you watch some of my other videos, you know that back then I ended up buying 3 properties, and that wiped me out financially. When I was done buying these 3 properties and renovating them, I had pretty much no money left over. So I was coming out from that time where I didn't have like a lot of money to like spare and stuff like that. But thankfully I had a few more deals lined up at the time that gave me a little bit more money. And it was at that time that I was starting to think maybe I should just go and buy a 4th property. Now keep in mind, this is 2012 where properties were still really dirt cheap. But the problem was that the area that I was buying in already, which is in San Bernardino, California, things were really being bought up, and I felt that it was a lot more competitive and I wasn't going to get the same deal that I just did for the last 3. So I started looking, believe it or not, out of state. And I kind of identified Las Vegas as a place that I can see myself investing. And the reason why I picked Las Vegas is because my friends and I would go up there pretty much every month. Sometimes maybe even twice a month, and we'd go there just to gamble. And like, we're not these types that would go up there and just go like rage and party for the entire weekend. We would take it really seriously, and we would go there and we just play like craps and baccarat and blackjack, and we just go there and get like amazing free comps, and it was fun. But because of going there and back so often, I felt somewhat familiar with the market, and I really felt that Vegas was a market that was undervalued, and that anything by the Strip was going to end up doing really well. So I reached out to a real estate agent out there who ended up having this property that was off market, and it was a short sale. So for anybody out there who's not aware what a short sale is, basically it's a deal where the owner bought it for way more than the house is worth. They couldn't make the payments on it, and they just give it back to the bank and they let it go in foreclosure. And what a short sale does is the owner can try to pass off the loss to the bank and then just have somebody else buy the property, and basically the bank will just absorb that hit. And that was, why a lot of the banks ended up getting bailed out. So this is a property that was 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, I think about 1,200 square feet, that originally sold in 2004 for $217,000. Now in I believe it was 2012, they wanted $69,000. Now hold off on your 69 jokes here, but $69,000 is how much they wanted. And for me, I was just like, you know what? This is perfect. I wanted this house really badly for $69,000. So I went ahead, I wrote an offer, I got the offer accepted, and the way it works with short sales is that you get the offer accepted and then they send it to the bank. And then it's up to the bank to decide how much they want for the property and if they'll sell it. And the seller also has to meet some requirements to show that they don't have like millions of dollars and they're just like letting it go off to the bank just to, so they don't lose money on it. So they do some investigation on the seller, the property, the market, and then it goes through an entire process. Now for short sales, it could take anywhere from 3 months to sometimes over a year to get approved by the bank. So I knew that if I got this offer accepted in 2012, realistically it was probably going to be about 6 to 12 months in order for me to actually buy the property and get approved by the bank. So I was totally cool with this. So I got the offer accepted, $69,000. And then all I did is I followed up with the real estate agent about once a month. Every month I'd say, hey, what's up, man? How's it going? Any update with this? And he'd get back to me and say, no update, sitting with the bank, it's this far in, we got a little bit more to go. Fine. I did that every single month for an entire year, from 2012 now to 2013. So now we're in September of 2013. The bank comes back and says, congratulations, we're accepting your offer. However, in the span of 1 year, from 2012 to 2013, the market went up in price. So even though when you wrote this offer initially, the house was worth $69,000, we estimate that because of the inventory out there, and we estimate that because the market has gone up dramatically, we now want $96,000 for this house. $96,000. And at the time, I was just like, this is not cool. Like I wanted to buy this house a year ago. Like the whole point of this was because I felt the market was gonna go up to this price. So now I'm paying what I felt at the time. I'm paying almost what it's worth market value wise, when the whole point of this was to buy it at $69,000 when the market was really suffering. And I started to do some research on this. And I was right. I mean, there were very few properties that were under $100,000 at this point in Las Vegas. But at the same time, I started to get a little arrogant. And I started to get a bit cocky with this because I'm like, I'm an expert in investing in these low-cost real estate deals, and I know everything, and I'm not going to pay market value for this house. And realistically, the house was probably worth about $105,000 at the time. Maybe on the high end, $110,000, on the low end, probably about $96,000, which is basically what I was paying. So worst case scenario, I'm paying the low end of what this house is worth, and the best case scenario, I would make about $16,000 in equity on this deal. But I just got arrogant, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to pay $96,000 for this house. So what I did, I called back the real estate agent and I said, let's prepare a counter for $88,000. And this way I felt like at least I'm getting a pretty good deal and I could buy the property a little bit less than its lowest value in my opinion. Honestly, I was just upset that I couldn't get the offer accepted at like 69 grand. I think that's what it really came down to because that was what it was worth back then, and I kept thinking like this is basically just costing me another like $20-something thousand just for waiting a year, and I didn't want to pay an extra $20-something thousand. So I went back at $88,000. And then the bank came back a week later and said, Graham, thank you very much for your $88,000, but basically it's $96,000 or get the fuck out of contract, we're gonna sell it to somebody else. And at that point, again, my arrogance took over and I'm just like, you know what, this isn't even worth it. I wanted my $88,000. You know, I offered $69,000, let it go. And that was a big mistake looking back. So then once it canceled, of course, it ended up going to someone else who's very excited and glad to pay the $96,000. So I figured at that point, you know what, there's just not that much upside in it, whatever, going to someone else, no big deal. But I still followed up with the real estate agent just to find out like, okay, just in case, at least I kind of want the option to jump back in because I'm noticing that, wait a second, I did actually kind of fuck up by not doing this. Values are really going up like way faster than what I thought. Even in the time where I canceled to like a few weeks later, I mean, really things just like all of a sudden just started picking up. And what ended up happening, about 1 month later, basically the new buyer came in and was about to close. 2 days before closing on this vacant house, there was a major flood in the property. Major. Now my plan originally was to go and gut the property anyway, so I didn't really care about any sort of flood. But the property flooded and the new buyer ended up canceling the deal because of this flood. Now, if I were in contract and the property flooded, this would have been the perfect opportunity for me to renegotiate again with the bank, say now it's going to cost me an extra $20,000 to fix this up, which we all know I can do it for a lot less, and then renegotiate back to probably the $69,000 price I could have gotten from the very beginning had this property just flooded while I was under contract with this. Because banks don't want properties that are flooded, that have potential liability issues, especially when you're already in contract to close. This would have been a perfect opportunity. Also assuming, let's say I closed on the property already and it flooded the next day. Boom, insurance kicks in. I could basically get an entirely renovated property paid for by insurance because of this flood. And that would have made a ton of money without me spending almost anything renovating this property. Even though I was planning to do it anyway, the flood is just a good excuse to either ask for a credit or get money from insurance for damage that ended up coming up. So this property ended up flooding, and the buyer who was in contract didn't have the money to do this, and they didn't want to undertake the project. That second buyer ended up backing out. And when I heard this, I was just like, this is perfect. I want in on this deal. But unfortunately, what ended up happening was that the bank realized the market's still going up, and what they wanted to do, they didn't want to sell the house with water damage and potential mold and liability, and there was just a lot going on. So the bank says, we're not going to sell this anymore as a short sale. What we're going to do is we're going to take it back, we're going to claim ownership of the property, and we're going to do what's called an REO, which stands for real estate owned. And basically what this is, these are bank-owned properties that they go in, they put little light touches, they basically just fix it up, do really minor stuff to try to sell it really quickly for about market value. So they ended up going in, just cleaning up the damage. I have no idea how much they spent. And then they ended up selling the house almost a year later, or maybe it was almost 2 years later at this point, for $115,000. The bank just took forever, took 3 years for this property to go from start to finish. So anyway, so I saw that home sell for $115,000, and I figured, you know what, I'm kind of over it. I wanted to spend more time investing in West Los Angeles, which is where I'm living now. But what makes it even worse is that just 3 months later, after that person bought it for $115,000, they spent almost no money additionally to kind of fix it up. They sold it for $155,000 just 3 months later for doing almost zero work on the property. And here I am. I would have been able to either buy it at $96,000 and get free insurance money to fix it up, or I could have renegotiated the price, taken it as is, fixed it up myself, and probably made right there, just easily, just right there, probably about $80,000 in profit just from doing some really minimal work in Las Vegas. If it doesn't get much worse than that, it does now, because probably the value of that home is probably worth a little bit over $200,000 at this point. $200,000. So I could have doubled my money just by holding on to this property, by doing absolutely almost nothing on this property besides some maybe a few weeks worth of work on it. Doubled my money on that in just a few years. And this is, by the way, a home that would probably rent for about $900 a month at the time, which we all know, if you're getting $900 a month for maybe a $75,000 total investment, that is a very good deal. A lot of people just weren't buying properties at this time, so instead they ended up renting, and the rental market ended up surging because of this. And these were deals that were just really common at this time. And looking back right now, this same house would probably be renting for about $1,300 to maybe $1,500 a month that I could have bought around $90-something thousand. And because I offered $8,000 less than I should have just to buy the property, I was too cheap. I was too frugal to try to save $8,000 because I let my ego get in the way and think that, like, this is it, I know it all, and I'm not going to pay $96,000 for this house. I made a huge mistake. That $8,000 ended up costing me well over $100,000 in profit just because I didn't want to spend that $8,000. Not to mention all the additional rental income I would have gotten at the time. I mean, we're probably talking like an extra $30,000 in rental income that I would have made at the same time. So easily, this is a $130,000 loss because I didn't want to spend $8,000 more. And the moral of the story here is that sometimes you have to look at things objectively and not let your own pride or ego get in the way and think that, like, I'm this amazing real estate investor and I only get the best deals and I'm not going to buy something unless it's like, I'm getting the best deal possible. And that's what really ended up getting in the way here. Had I looked objectively at this deal and just said, you know what, every other property is selling for over $100,000, I'm getting this one a little bit less. The long-term picture is really what I'm going for anyway. I'm not in this just to try to save $8,000 on a deal because I try to get the best deal possible. if I was not that type of investor, back then I would have bought the deal, I would have overlooked it, I still would have had an amazing property, it would have doubled in value, I would have made over $130,000. Like, had I just bought that, that's basically the free Lamborghini that, I'm talking so much about buying, That's the free Lamborghini right there, had I just bought that property. But I didn't. So again, for all of you watching this, if you ever want to become a real estate investor or really invest in anything, do your best to look at things objectively and try not to put your ego in the way or your pride in the way and think that you're better than you actually are. Because I wasn't. I'm not this amazing investor. Sometimes I just have to look at things objectively and not let myself get in the way of myself, because that was really what ended up happening. I got in the way of my own deal just to try to save $8,000. Don't do this, and this is the one property that I fucked up with that I should have got, the one property that got away from me. So for all of you watching, don't make the same mistake as me. Look at the long-term picture of the deal. So as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you watched it all the way through and you haven't already subscribed yet, make sure to smash that subscribe button, smash that notification bell so YouTube notifies you anytime I upload a video. And also, if you like it, make sure to hit the like button. It really does mean a lot to show your support like this. Also, feel free to add me on Snapchat and Instagram. I post there pretty much daily, so if you want to be a part of it there, feel free to add me there. And lastly, I have a free Facebook group for anybody who's interested in real estate investing, working as a real estate agent, real estate wholesaling, anything real estate. The link is in the description. Make sure to add yourself there. Thank you again for watching, and until next time.